Mexico did not just win that night, it ripped open a problem the game keeps trying to hide. What looked like a commanding 3-0 over Czechia was also a spotlight, a warning, and maybe even an indictment. Because beneath the goals, beneath the noise, beneath the fireworks, something else was exposed. Something bigger than one match, one stadium, or one result. Stay with us, because by the end of this story you will understand why Mexico's historic night may have revealed FIFA's biggest problem in plain sight. A 3-goal victory should have been simple, clean, easy to explain. But this was not simple. This was a match played inside a wider pattern of uneven pitches, lopsided recovery windows, and silent advantages that seem to follow host nations everywhere the cameras go. If you care about what football is becoming, subscribe now and keep watching, because what comes next is not about one scoreline, but about the system that made that scoreline possible. Here is the contradiction at the heart of it all. FIFA sells the world a tournament of equal competition, while too many teams walk into conditions that are nowhere near equal. The promise is fairness. The reality is adjustment, improvisation, and survival. Some teams adapt to the surface, some teams adapt to the schedule, and some teams are forced to adapt to both, while others glide through on familiar ground, with familiar climate, familiar routines, and familiar margins. That is the secret hiding in the open. Hiding in the open. Hiding in the open. Mexico were brilliant, yes, sharp in transition, ruthless in front of goal, and emotionally charged by a crowd that turned every touch into a surge of energy. But brilliance and imbalance can exist in the same frame. That is exactly why this night matters. When the first passes skipped awkwardly, when the ball held up in strange patches, when footing looked uncertain for one side and almost instinctive for the other, the match told a second story. Pitch quality is supposed to be invisible. That is the point. When a surface is truly fair, nobody talks about it. The grass should not decide tempo, the bounce should not decide confidence, and traction should not decide who presses and who hesitates. But once players begin checking their steps, once midfielders start shaping their passes around dead spots, once defenders worry about turning instead of reading danger, the match is no longer only about talent. It becomes a test of who has already made peace with the field, and that is where discomfort begins. Then comes the schedule, the part officials love to describe as complicated, logistical, unavoidable. Complicated for whom? Unavoidable for whom? Because recovery time is not a detail at this level, it is oxygen. One extra day can change the sharpness of a press, the timing of a run, the speed of a decision, the resilience of tired legs under pressure. One extra day can mean the difference between competing and merely enduring. Think about the hidden chain reaction. A team travels farther, sleeps later, trains lighter, recovers worse, and arrives mentally half a second behind. Half a second is everything. Half a second on the ball, half a second in the tackle, half a second before panic arrives. Now add the host nation effect, the advantage everybody senses and almost nobody wants to say out loud. Crowd energy is real. Climate familiarity is real. Routine is real. Knowing the training ground, the tunnel, the sight lines, the humidity, the rhythm of the city, all of it matters. But when those natural edges are quietly amplified by softer travel, friendlier rest patterns, better surfaces, or decision-making that somehow always lands in one direction, we are no longer talking about atmosphere. We are talking about structure. We are talking about design. Imagine the visiting defender icing both ankles after midnight, replaying every awkward plan of his boot, knowing that one slip on a rough patch can become a goal, a headline, a scar carried for years. Imagine the midfielder staring at a schedule sheet, realizing recovery was never really recovery, only a shorter countdown to the next sprint. Imagine the coach saying the careful thing in public, then the honest thing in private. That is how this system survives. Not because nobody sees it, but because too many people feel they cannot say it when the cameras are on. Pull back further and the picture grows darker. This is not just about one opponent on one night. It is about a sport that keeps promising global equality while staging wildly unequal local realities. Teams bounce from city to city, altitude to humidity, pristine surfaces to stitched-together ones, prime kickoffs to body clock nightmares. Players speak about heat, about footing, about turnaround times, about training compromises, about the strange feeling that some burdens are discussed openly, while others are simply absorbed. Absorbed by tired hamstrings, absorbed by swollen knees, absorbed by silence. And to be clear, this is not an accusation against Mexico for winning. Teams do what teams are supposed to do. They play the match in front of them. They use the energy available, the confidence available, the conditions available. If an advantage exists, competitors will take it. That is not the scandal. The scandal is a governing culture that keeps creating these imbalances, then pretending the outcome is pure merit. Before we go deeper, if this is the kind of coverage you have been looking for, subscribe and turn on notifications, because the final piece of this puzzle is the one they never want examined closely. Ask yourself a simple question. Who benefits when the standard is vague? Who benefits when players complain quietly instead of collectively? Who benefits when every controversy can be dismissed as excuses from the beaten side? The answer is uncomfortable because it points upward, toward organizers who prioritize spectacle over consistency, toward decision-makers who celebrate record crowds and viral moments while treating pitch preparation, travel equity, and recovery fairness like administrative footnotes. Footnotes decide tournaments. Footnotes decide careers. Footnotes decide who gets remembered as strong and who gets dismissed as weak. And when enough footnotes pile up, they stop being footnotes. They become the story. That is what happened on Mexico's historic night. The goals were the visible drama. The hidden drama was the environment surrounding them. And once you see that environment, you cannot unsee it. You begin asking harder questions every time a favorite suddenly looks heavy, every time an underdog fades faster than expected, every time a host side seems half a step sharper when legs should already be burning. Was it mindset? Was it quality? Or was the contest bent long before kickoff by details too boring for headlines and too decisive to ignore? Fans deserve better than myth-making. Players deserve better than polite indifference. And football deserves better than a fairness campaign printed on banners while inequality grows under everyone's boots. Because this is the larger warning hiding inside one electric result. If football's biggest events cannot guarantee equal fields, equal recovery, and equal treatment, then the word competition starts losing its meaning. And once meaning slips, trust follows. Trust from players, trust from fans, trust from every kid watching and believing the biggest stage is also the fairest one. That is why this night matters beyond Mexico, beyond Czechia, beyond a single score. It forces us to look at the machinery, not just the fireworks. It forces us to ask whether FIFA wants a truly level contest, or merely the appearance of one. And that question will not go away, not after a night like this, not after a performance so dominant that it made the underlying imbalance impossible to ignore. So now the burden shifts to the people who run the game. Will they standardize what must be standardized? Will they protect every team the same way? Will they stop treating fairness like a slogan and start treating it like infrastructure? Or will nights like this keep arriving, dazzling on the surface, damaging underneath? That answer matters more than any press release. It matters more than any post-match spin. Because once a sport starts hiding its unfairness inside the fine print becomes the real script. What do you think? Was this simply a great Mexican performance, or a warning flare for a deeper FIFA problem that can no longer be brushed aside? Tell us in the comments, and if you want more investigations that go past the score and into the system, like this video, subscribe, and stay with us. Because sometimes the loudest truth in football is not the roar after the goal. It is the silence before anyone dares admit how the stage was tilted. And on this historic night, Mexico won the match, but the match exposed the game. And once that happens, the real question is simple. Who still wants to pretend nothing is wrong?